Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of ShellBlack Whiteboard, where we help you get the most out of the Salesforce platform. I'm ShellBlack, president and founder of ShellBlack.com and Salesforce MVP. We're going to continue our conversation around opportunities. In this episode, we're going to talk about defining your sales process. There's a couple places you would define a business process in Salesforce, case stage, lead status, and when you work with opportunities and defining a sales process, it's a little different. Normally it's just a single pick list. But with the sales process, there's actually some other fields involved. So let's take a look. So when you define your pick list values for your opportunity stage, in Salesforce, you're going to have to define also a probability percent and also a forecast category. So let's talk about what a probability percent is real quick. So the thought is if you are early in your selling process, you have a lower likelihood or a lower probability that that deal is going to close or that opportunity is going to close. So the thought is if you have 10 deals in identified and qualified and I have a 10% probability, I'm really saying that I think there's about a 1 in 10 chance that this deal at this stage is going to make it all the way through the sales process. Because with sales, as we know, deals are going to fall out and we're going to lose deals. Customers go cold, whatever it might be. With that, you also have what's called a forecast category. And forecasting is really kind of a cultural thing. Not everybody has to use forecasting. In fact, Salesforce doesn't even display this field on the page layout. It's not a required field. It is required, however, when you're setting up your sales process. So real quickly, let me run through these pick list values. Pipeline, it's something that we're tracking, but we're not close to closing it yet. Best case, when I see a stage like that, that basically tells me if this is a best case scenario that we're going to win this deal. If all the stars align, it's not that far along in the process, it's not close to closing, but we might be able to close it in this fiscal period. Something that's close to the end of our sales process, we have a forecast category of commit, and then we have closed for our won stage, and then omitted for our lost stage. All these stages are really in an open opportunity. If you're running a report and you say, let me see my open opportunities, it's any stage that's not a close won or close loss is considered open. These both are considered closed. Obviously, one's won, one's lost. So you'll notice the probability is getting higher the farther along we are in our sales process until we're 100% won or 0% lost. These are just some sample stages. I have a good blog post out there, and I'll put these in our show notes of how to define a good business process in Salesforce. A couple of quick tips, short and sweet, action-oriented, non-ambiguous. If you are running a report and I see something like quote sent, it's very obvious where I am in the sales process. I can tell real quickly if I'm in a new org and I see some of the out-of-the-box processes like needs analysis or perception analysis. What are those? Get together as a team, define those. If you're using the out-of-box stages, kind of shame on you. It's just for example's sake. Get with your team, define what your process is to make a sale, how things move forward in the process, and spend the time to define this. Probability, if you do set your stage to identified, your probability will default to 10% and your forecast category will default to whatever you've defined. As you flip your opportunity stage forward, if I flipped it to quote sent, probability will default on my page layout to 40%. Your salespeople can always override it. This is just, again, any deal that's in this probability we think is a 40% likelihood to close. So that's how you set up a sales process. I want to spend a couple of seconds on forecasting and whether that's really makes sense or is a good fit for your organization. You do not have to use forecasting if you do not want to. Some people feel obligated because there's some reporting around it. There's actually a whole module in Salesforce that you can enable. My quick take on this is if you're a large multi-tier sales organization, potentially hundreds of salespeople, multi-layers of sales management, forecasting might make sense for your organization. If you're relatively flat, we've got a dozen or so salespeople that report to a sales manager or a sales VP. You probably can accomplish a lot of the same things you want to from a reporting standpoint and a sales management standpoint by just getting your folks good at updating a couple of fields in the opportunity. Close date, stage, and amount. And really what I'm driving here is, what do you want to report on? Do you want to report on the opportunity stage or do you want to report on a forecast category? If you are rolling out forecasting to your organization, you need to think about the impact to your salespeople and adoption. When you're rolling out Salesforce for the first time, or maybe you have a lot of new hires, it's a lot for someone who's never used Salesforce before to kind of get their head wrapped around how to use opportunities and use the database well. I encourage you, if you're going to use forecasting, start with teaching them to maintain the out-of-the-box fields, close date, stage, and amount. And if culturally you guys really do want forecasting, layer that on afterward. Make sure you've got some good traction and you got adoption, that they're in the database and using it well. Then layer on forecasting. Forecasting kind of blows people's minds. It's a little complex. Again, it's really, is it a cultural fit for your organization? So that's my little diatribe on forecasting. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any feedback on how we're doing, there's a couple ways you can reach out to us. You can hit me on Twitter. I'm at Shell_Black, or you can email me, whiteboard@ShellBlack.com. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon.